Welcome back to Gothic Homemaking. In my pursuits to show you amazing monster-themed restaurants and bars across the world, I've traveled to New York City, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Portland, Oregon, Mexico City, Tokyo, Bali, Indonesia, all over the world really. Well, today we're going to go on another monster-themed tour, but this time we're going to go to a place that deserves an episode all its own, and that's to Florida, the Sunshine State. No, look at you, you've had enough sun. It's how you died, don't you remember? I told you it was daylight, but you just had to leave your crypt. Oh, and you eat ice cream now? You're a monster. And speaking of monsters, today we're going to go in search of all of the Universal monsters under one roof. And what better place to do that than at Universal Studios Orlando? When you visit Universal Studios Florida, no doubt there will be lots to see and do. Spend some time with a green ogre or with some little yellow minions. And when you're done flying with a transformer, ask one to point you in the direction of the wizarding world of Harry Potter. Once you've arrived at that magical world, if you're patient, you just may see a dragon blow real fire at the unsuspecting muggles below. You can take a spin on a roller coaster, but when you see monsters spinning, you'll know you've arrived at the Universal Studios Classic Monsters Cafe. Before you go in and pull up a chair, admire the full-size dioramas in the foyer of Frankenstein's monster and the Wolfman. At first glance, this place looks like a cafeteria in any theme park, but venture further and you'll find a room dedicated to the classic sci-fi films of the 50s. "Waiter, there's a fly in my soup," is not what you'll be saying when you see there are giant spiders directly above you. But if the ship is infected with extraterrestrial arachnids, fear not, because there's a whole wall of ray guns to choose from. And if you need backup, you could always defrost these two. Next door, there's an area dedicated to the creature, featuring another gorgeous life-size diorama, where the creature seems to be reaching out for your french fries. The Wolfman section is presently the least developed. Between the main rooms, there are colorful science experiments, which are sadly not the beverage dispensers. The most immersive room is Dracula's Domain, which is lit with deep red lighting and features architectural details meant to transport you to the castle of the Count himself, painted here by the late great Basil Gogos, whose paintings adorn most of the rooms. The Frankenstein section is complete with artifacts, nodding to the antiquated science that birthed the monster. And next to him is his bride. Her section was my favorite, but probably because I like the color scheme the best. Of course, the mummy section looks like an excavated tomb. But if you want to resurrect this mummy, you'll need to decipher this ancient recipe for pizza sauce? Speaking of which, this is where the food is ordered, but first I want to show you these incredible busts sculpted by makeup effects legend Tom Savini. They had a Dracula, a Phantom of the Opera, the Mummy, and the creature from the Black Lagoon was guarding the condiments. Well, at least he wasn't hitting on sailors in a tiki bar. It's an inside joke. You'll have to watch my video, 5 monster-themed restaurants to die for, to get it. Wait a minute, don't you watch these videos that we're in together? Why am I not surprised? In any case, it was time to order food, but first, there was something that I just had to get out of my system. I mean, really, who can enter a place like this and not take a moment to yell, "It's alive! Alive!" The Wolfman is a barbecued chicken pizza and one of the favorites here. But there's also the Perilous Pear, where you can choose 2 of their meat items along with a couple of sides. The menu is very meat heavy, and I'm sorry to say that if you're vegan, you've only got one choice, and that's the mummy. You can see the ingredients here. The food is served cafeteria style, where you tell the servers what you want and they put it on a tray for you. And I will be frank, when I tell you I was surprised the food went directly on the tray with no plate, until I remembered that this is how food is served at quite a few trendy Brooklyn hipster hotspots. This was my friend John's meal, which he seemed to rather enjoy. I found the food to be simple, straightforward, and delicious. But there was something missing. What was it? Oh yeah, I'll have what she's having. Another novel feature is that all the monsters have their own director's chairs, the creatures being covered in netting. The monsters has nuts and bolts and restraints. The mummy's is dilapidated and covered in bandages. And Dracula's is cleverly hanging upside down from the ceiling. But if you're a monster fan and you visit this place, you will feel like you just got out of this chair. As a lifelong monster kid, I too had an electrifying experience at Universal's Classic Monsters Cafe. But the sun was setting over Orlando, Florida, and it was time to visit a monster-themed establishment in a more bar-like setting. Take a look. Enter Cocktails and Screams and you'll be greeted by an array of strange creatures, but then monsters make the most interesting people. Immediately to your right, you'll find some horror-themed pinball machines, including beloved shows from my childhood and adulthood alike. And if you're a fan of Elvira, you might want to sit in the Elvira section and enjoy a cocktail under the watching eyes of the Mistress of the Dark. If Nightmare Before Christmas is more your thing, this might be the section for you. Or sidle up to the bar and enjoy some delicious shots with the denizens of Orlando's spooky underground. The main room is a beautifully lit cavernous space filled with gorgeous Gothic furniture. There's a wonderfully macabre mural with optical effects that really bring it to life, creating a truly haunting environment. There are portraits that seem harmless enough until they come to life, as well as a stage that hosts musical performances of singers with real organ accompaniment. Below the stage are Bram Stoker-inspired grotesques that are known to fill the room with a blanket of fog. For a more private experience, rent the Addams Family room for the evening for $600, which comes with a $300 bar tab, and you and your friends can sit in a private setting dedicated to one of our favorite families of fright. Regale each other with your big fishtails for an absolutely perfect evening. Or try your hand at entering the private back room, the witch's cottage called The Craft, which can only be entered by answering a riddle that changes nightly, of course. Upon entering, you might encounter a potion master like Corvin Hemlock. It being a secret room, I can't show you very much, but I can tell you there's no menu. Simply tell the witch your preferred flavor profiles, and they will create a magic elixir for you to imbibe using your favorite spirits. Don't fret if you don't get in, there's plenty of spirits at the bar. As a rum fan, I chose The Creature from the Black Lagoon, their take on the classic Dark and Stormy, which I found to be dark and delicious. But what really blew me away was the Supernatural. With its flaming marshmallow, it tasted like a yummy adult campfire. There's also food on the menu, including the inventive pumpkin-shaped cheese balls, which are, as they sound, delicious cheese spreads shaped like adorable pumpkins. The witches are small sandwich sliders, and vegans will be glad to know there's a vegan option made of seitan. Hail Satan! Speak of the devil, my favorite were the deviled eggs. The presentation is as amazing as the flavor. Look at the veins on those eggs. How can something so devilish be so heavenly? Though I would suggest removing the hot peppers if you don't want your mouth to get hotter than hell. I came to Cocktails and Screams for, well, cocktails and screams, but I stayed for the frightfully good food. The next day, I was performing in Tampa, Florida, and I had heard murmurings of a mysterious place called the Spookeasy Lounge. I had very limited time, and I had to find a way to sneak out of the club between sound check and showtime. But luckily for me, roosters. Take a look. My show was taking place in Tampa's Ybor City, a place steeped in my very own Cuban culture, so maybe I shouldn't have been surprised when roosters showed up in front of the venue. It was an hour before doors and a line had formed, but since they were distracted by looking at chickens, I ducked out. I took a walk down the block and found my way to the Spookeasy Lounge. Upon arriving, I was confused because this place didn't look spooky at all. It looked more like a regular bar. And that's when I noticed the skull-shaped sign at the door letting me know that, like any good speakeasy, the place I sought was behind a bookcase upstairs. And so I ventured up the stairs, and sure enough, behind a bookcase was this place. My first impression was that it looked like a room right out of a Gothic Homemaking episode. There were similar motifs, similar furniture. They even had a lot of the same items that I owned, making me feel right at home. The decor is fleshed out with some medieval themes. But no, that night isn't gonna sing. The mic is for their acoustic performances. Optical effects add to the atmosphere, like this animated painting. If you can't find a table for you and your friend, sit at the bar where there's no shortage of skulls. At last, I cracked open the menu and was ready to order a cocktail. I had a chat with the owners, who were really nice, and I asked them, hey, which one of these cocktails has rum? And they said, none, we only serve tea here. And I was like, I get it, it's a speakeasy. Mum's the word. And they were like, no, we really only serve tea here. And it was then that I realized that the Spookeasy Lounge is a kava lounge, as in kava with a K, not kava with a C. Kava is a plant found in Southeast Asia, which, when made into a tea, is said to have relaxing, anti-anxiety, and even euphoriant properties. This was all new to me, but the staff was extremely friendly and helpful, and helped me make a selection. Well, let me tell you, I took one sip and instantly time traveled to another dimension. I'm just kidding. It was tasty though. Did I feel any effects from it? I don't think I had enough to be sure. I was advised by the owners not to drink alcohol along with kava tea, and I was going to be doing a show in an hour where I knew I'd be drinking alcohol, so I kept my kava tea intake to a minimum. But speaking of alcohol, I asked the owners what inspired them to open a kava tea lounge instead of a bar, and they said there's already enough bars, there's already enough places serving alcohol, and they wanted to provide sober people with a place to congregate and socialize without the pressure of having to buy an alcoholic drink. What? No, don't be ridiculous. I can hang out without drinking alcohol. Maybe. Speaking of which, as long as you order one item from the menu, patrons are more than welcome to bring cocktails and food up from downstairs from the Stone Soup Company, which I guess is why their slogan is, all spirits welcome. In any case, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you've enjoyed this episode of Gothic Homemaking. And next week we're going to... Is that the Ice Cream Man? Stay.